Indian Muslims compose about 15% of India's population, and it's approximately 200 million Muslims. 80% of these Muslims are poor and lower middle class. In fact, in the contemporary situation, Muslims are amongst the lowest and most marginalized groups in India, and their position right now is comparable to the traditionally disadvantaged groups, the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. When I'm talking about the missing Muslim in the Indian educational scenario, I'm talking about missing in a very particular sense. That is, Muslims are missing in the official discourse, educational discourse, in the sense that, one, Muslims are absent from much of the educational data that is available. Muslims are missing. And as significantly, in the national education policy, the 2000 national education policy, which was approved by the cabinet, Muslims are completely missing. So these are the first two issues that I will be discussing in my presentation. And after that, I will discuss why both data and policy, this missing data and missing Muslims in the policy, why they need to be rectified if we are going to go ahead with any educational reforms for Muslims. And finally, the fourth and last section of my presentation will focus on what needs to be done. My first section is devoted to missing Muslim educational data. We need to go back to the 2006 Sachar Committee report. For those of you who may not know, this was the first report devoted entirely to Muslims. It was a landmark report in that sense. And it focused on education. And within education, it highlighted the issue that there was a complete lack of data which was provided for, which was not provided for Muslims. In fact, the Sachar Committee had to go and look for data themselves in order to write about the educational status and position of Muslims. So in that sense, the Sachar Committee was a very important document in many ways, and in this specific respect was a landmark document. And as a result of the Sachar Committee recommendations, the situation improved for Muslims, and data started after Sachar, the data started improving, and you started having enrollment data at the school level and at the higher education level. At the school level, you had NIPA, which then became NUPA, which started presenting data, the UDICE data on school enrollment. And then for higher education, the All India Survey of Higher Education produced data on higher education, in which separate categories of Muslims were also included. However, Muslims continue to be missing in other official publications, specifically in the Ministry of Education publications. For example, even in the most latest publication of theirs, the Educational Statistics at a Glance, 2018, of the Ministry of Education, they continue with the post-independence tradition over 5 decades of data collection, of not providing any data on Muslims. In fact, there is literacy data in this publication, enrollment data. There's even results, class 10 and class 12 board examination results. There's also achievement survey of class 10 in English, mathematics, science, and social sciences, showing how class 10 students are faring. In all this, there's even state level data, and data is provided for other groups except Muslims. Muslims are also missing in the data which is provided for who gets into the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangatna and the Navodaya Vidyalaya Samitis. Both these are government school networks, prestigious government school networks, and you will not get from their website any idea of how many Muslims are enrolled in these schools, but you definitely get an idea of how many scheduled castes and scheduled tribes students are enrolled in these institutions. And finally, if you want to ask the question, what is the quality of learning of Muslim students? You will have no answer from the official data. The NCERT, the National Council of Educational Research and Training, which is the official educational wing of the Ministry of Education, has produced national learning surveys for a number of years. Their latest, the 2017 National Achievement Survey, looked at the learning of lakhs of students in language, mathematics, environmental studies, social studies, sciences at the primary and middle school stage. And these were given disaggregated at the state level. So if you wanted to know how students were doing at the primary or middle school stage in Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu or Uttar Pradesh, you could get that information, but you would not get it for Muslims, but you would get it for scheduled caste students, scheduled tribe students, and in the last 2017 National Achievement Survey, they even provided data on OBC students. And to recap, as far as the official educational data is concerned, in much of the official publications, the data that is provided for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, but not for Muslims. But at least as far as data is concerned, there is some data available for Muslims, but it is important to understand that in the 2020 National Education Policy, which, as I said, has been approved by the cabinet and is being rolled out right now at the state level, Muslims have been omitted, and I would say very clearly that they were omitted deliberately out of the 2020 National Education Policy. I say this that they were omitted deliberately because in the 2019 draft, from which Muslims were included, in fact, recommendations were made, statistics were provided for Muslims, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes. And in fact, Muslims were seen as a very disadvantaged group. And so they merited special attention from the National Education Policy. And so recommendations were made. But in the 2020 policy, the recommendations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and their mention were specifically articulated, but for Muslims were completely excluded from this. So in the two areas of data and policy, in the policy, they are completely excluded. At the data situation, they are excluded, they are missing in quite a bit, quite considerably. So it is important to understand that data and policy are critical. Data informs policy, and policy informs implementation. You cannot have policy without data, and you cannot have implementation without policy or without data. Okay? So they all three very specific connection. Let me just give you an example off the bat, because now we are in the middle of this pandemic, and the situation is getting worse in India and in Maharashtra specifically. You cannot talk about the pandemic, COVID-19, without understanding how many people are sick, how many people are sick enough to be hospitalized, and how many people, I mean, just at a very basic level, how many people are dying. And you need to know this situation, the mortality rates, the number of people who are getting sick, and the number of people who are getting infected. These are very basic data you would need, and you would need to know this at a state level, at a district level, at a city level. In order for any kind of understanding, should we have a partial lockdown in Maharashtra? Should we have a partial lockdown in a city, or should we have a complete lockdown in Tamil Nadu or elsewhere? That would depend on the data. And that data would inform policy, and that policy would inform what is being implemented. Similarly, in education, you need to have data to inform policy, educational policy, and you need to have that for inform implementation. And let me point out that the critical nature of this data and policy by looking at the educational trajectories of Muslims, along with the traditionally disadvantaged groups, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. In colonial India, before independence, in the 1930s, of which we have data, Muslims were not faring very well, but they certainly were they were far ahead of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, SCs and STs, who were traditionally the most disadvantaged group and hardly had their presence in education was extremely limited. You could not say that about Muslims in colonial India. However, in independent India, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, not only was there reservation, but in education, a very specific and very deliberate policies were cast and data was provided in order to improve their educational status. It was absolutely required because they were really extremely backward in terms of education prior to independence. And along with constitutional reservation policies for them, large-scale educational schemes targeted SCs and STs and provided educational data to track their progress. Muslims, on the other hand, had no such special categories, and neither, importantly, there was no data to track whether they were doing better or whether they were doing worse. So in fact, suddenly in the first decade of the 21st century, suddenly you get data coming out, and then you realize that the most backward group in India in terms of enrollment, in comparison to their population, Muslims have the lowest enrollment rates compared to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. In fact, both groups are doing significantly far better than Muslims in school education, in higher education, and especially in higher education in elite and prestigious institutions like IITs, IIMs, and institutions of national importance. And here, you suddenly find, because of a lack of data, because of a lack of policy, which could only have been done throughout the country in various states, if we had data present, we suddenly find that Muslims are at the bottom of the education ladder. So it is extremely significant if Muslims are to move out from this position of being at the bottom of the education ladder to make sure that there's both data and policy which can inform implementation. So I come to my final section, what can be done? And I don't want to get into a series of recommendations. I just want to broadly make some broad recommendations. As far as data for Muslims are concerned, one is very unclear whether the data is available and is not being made publicly available. That is, the educational authorities have it, but they are not publishing it. Or it's unclear whether they are not publishing it because they don't really have it. But whichever way it is, I'm not entering into this discussion because I don't know. What should be done should be whatever data is available for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, all right, in in higher education or in school education. That data, those categories, all data for them, for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, those categories, the similar data should be available for Muslims. So I'm not suggesting that you do data for enrollment, scholarships, learning achievement, this, that. There are various categories which are available for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes data. I'm saying the same thing should be done for Muslims. And I make that policy recommendation based on the fact that Muslims are the most disadvantaged group right now. And as I pointed out, and as I highlighted, they are worse off than scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. At the policy level, while you can't do anything about the national 2020 national education policy at the central level, it has already been approved by the cabinet. It is being rolled out at the state level. So it is at the state level and sub-state, district level, municipal corporation level, block level, that Muslim organizations and other civil society groups must work to ensure that the state level and district level, block level, corporation level, municipal corporation level policies incorporate Muslims into their plans. So both these data and policy changes should be viewed as part of a larger agenda of Muslim educational reform. And it is my submission that unless you have this reform, the position of Indian Muslims will continue to deteriorate. They are right now socio-economically and politically the most marginalized group in India. They are educationally the most marginalized group in India. And so consequently, their educational reforms will make for a much better and sustainable development for them. These reforms I have outlined in my 2019 report called New Education Agenda for Indian Muslims in the 21st Century. It's available on the net in a dedicated website. And that gives the specific reforms which I have articulated with a specific target group in mind, which is poor and lower middle class Muslims, who compose 80% of the population and of Muslims right now, which approximately is about 160 million. So what is at stake over here? What is at stake is that there is the future education and overall development of approximately 200 million Muslims, 80% of whom are poor and lower middle class. The population size of which is larger than almost all but 7 other countries in the world. It's a huge population, and which, as I have pointed out, have now become the most educationally disadvantaged group. And so for this particular group, it is my view that this particular group of poor and lower middle class Muslims require both policy and data and other educational reforms to make their future different and brighter.